But anyway, now we've been married. I'm a married guy now, but the war is still going on. And so they said I was needed overseas again. I was an officer, and I had expanded responsibility. I can't remember exactly what. Probably had more people and stuff like that. And so we went down to where we'd been, not too far from where I'd been stationed just a year or so before. But this is on another island up there. I think it was called Manus Island, something like that. And there was a headquarters squadron for carrier airplanes. And so that's what I was doing then. From that point on, what did I say? This was in 40, this is in, this would have been, no, I was already in 44, so it was in 44. It was late in 44 when I went down there, and then I was there till the end of the war, which happened the following year. During that period of time, our headquarters squadron, we moved from island to island, always moving up towards the Philippines. And then we started into the southern islands, and we moved on up to Sangley Point, and that's where the Langley had been sent originally. But the Langley, it was sunk. The Japanese, I think they sunk that when the Langley was trying to make a getaway to get out of the harbor, because it didn't have any offense, so they couldn't really fight back with anything. And so anyway, they nailed it and sunk it within a few days after the beginning of the war, December the 7th, 41 in other words, right along that period of time. But meanwhile, in August, big bomb was dropped, and the Japanese became, the emperor and everybody conceded that this would be a good thing to stop this war. So the next thing you know, then you have, I got a picture in there of Admiral Chester Nimitz signing, I'll show you that later on, signing the surrender treaty. And happened so quickly that by December, I was on a ship heading back to the States. The war was over, officially over at that time,
Do you remember exactly where you were when you heard it was over?
Yeah, I was right there in the Philippines, at Sangley Point, yeah, I was just, I was on duty, I had some kind of a job, I guess,
And how did you feel about the bomb? And then I guess you decided to stay on in the Navy, but anyway,
Yeah,
keep
I
going.
did, yeah. Well, then yeah, I was right at a decision point there. I guess I should have been I've been in the Navy since what did I say, 37, and now this is 45. So I was getting a few years built up under my belt. So, well, of course, by this time I was an officer, a commissioned officer. And then they sent me back to, my first duty station was go back to Ottumwa, Iowa. At Ottumwa, Iowa is where there was a Navy pre-flight school during the war. There was expansion of Pensacola. So I went back there, so I helped the commanding officer. We decommissioned that place in Ottumwa, Iowa. But I brought Helen along with me, and that's where our oldest son, our only son, was born. He was born September the 1st, 1947. I don't know, it was Labor Day. And we thought it was so funny. She was in labor on Labor Day. Anyway, he's 70-something years old. I don't even know. He's retired. I've got to show you. I got just this last weekend. And so then the next thing that happened to me, okay, we concluded our job at Ottumwa, Iowa, and the next thing, I was transferred down to Pensacola, Florida, which was the site of the main pre-flight thing. And oh, wait a minute now. Along around I got into a squadron that went, the station in Whidbey Island, these were liberators. I was a gunnery officer, and we had the 4-engine liberators, and then we deployed. We all went up to Kodiak Island, and presumably for a regular tour of duty, maybe about 3 or 4 or 5 months, but all after about a month, orders came from Washington, D.C. that our squadron was being decommissioned. So then that means that these airplanes went back down to Whidbey Island, and then the personnel went out in all different directions. At that point, they sent me to San Francisco, to Fort Mason, to get on a ship, the General G.M. Randall, and I was a gunnery officer on this thing. And what it was a ship that had been used in World War I. It was a transport ship, and I think it was operated by the Coast Guard, but the Navy had taken it over now and put guns on it and everything like that. Well, this is for the Korean War. That's right. Yeah, I keep losing track of the time. Now we're in the 50s, for cripe's sakes, yeah.
Sure.
49,
Sure.
longer than that. So and so we made a few trips over there, usually taking troops over to Japan, different places like that. But then in 50, we talked about it earlier, that in about June of 50, we launched, we and among other ships, launched our troops into Korea. What's the name of that town? It's right on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, we put them ashore there, and we picked that spot because they had real high tidal swings up and down. But then as the war developed, it wasn't good for us, and we came around on the other side, Hungnam, Korea, up near the 38th parallel. We took, in December of 1950, we took out 2 loads of Marines, and they were so cold, so beat up, and they come through the water, you know. And I'll tell you what, I had every piece of Navy heavy clothing. I was on the bridge, spending a lot of time on the bridge, out in the open, you know. And I'd never been so cold as in my whole life at that point there. And these poor guys, they were not necessarily, they had their regular dress on, but they were getting kind of wacky too. God, they were throwing grenades back and forth. Oh God, I hope we don't have an incident, one of those things going on. So anyway, we took 2 boatloads of these Marines down to Busan, the southern tip of Korea. And then, let's say, it's kind of a blur. I mean, it's the end of, I guess about that point, I wound up back, oh, yeah, Morocco. We were sent to Morocco. I went over there with a VR squadron. A VR squadron is just Navy transports, in other words. And they were located in Port Ely, Morocco. It's up there in the northwest corner of Africa, just before the Atlantic goes past Rock of Gibraltar. Then you're in the Caribbean, and we were servicing the 6th Fleet, and our squadron's mission was to take personnel and stuff needed to service the 6th Fleet. And occasionally I would take a nuclear bomb, what do you call it, igniter. It was in a box about so big that you need. That's the thing that makes it go. Transport that out. I'd escort one of those things out to the ship. I'd get on a little carrier plane, and they would. I wasn't a pilot, and land aboard the carrier and turn that over to the commanding officer, and so he'd have it as one of his weapons available, you know. He already had the main thing. And so Now, after Morocco, a lovely tour of duty, by that time our kids were both born, landed and born in Whidbey Island while I was up there. In fact, she was just a baby when we moved. I've been sent up to Kodiak, and within a month we were on our way back. So we took this little baby and her older brother, 2 years older, Spike, and down here to San Lorenzo. I rented a place there in San Lorenzo. Well, I checked on to the General GM Randall, and then the GM, that tour of duty was only about a year or so. Didn't take too long. You know, there's some place in there though that I was in Hartford, Connecticut at Pratt and Whitney, like a contract administrator. Yeah, the kids were a little bit older then, and the next thing was then we went to Morocco, and the kids were still a little bit older, and I've already told you what we did in Morocco, and we for a while we lived in a regular like a vacation house on the beach. It was really a resort, really a nice beach. We were up about 2 or 3 levels, and you could look down and you could see other people down there. The French ladies didn't think nothing about taking their clothes off, your own sunbathe. It was just what the heck. So they were so far ahead of everybody else in the world.
It would be an education for your son.
What's that?
An education for your son.
Yeah, of course he was so young.
Overseas, wow. He was pretty young.
Yeah, that's
then.
right. Yeah, and then eventually we got quarters on the base, which was a Quonset hut. We were raised in the Quonset hut had been jazzed up, you know, and we thought it was heaven. And it was a beautiful base, and we had some wonderful times there. We did a little bit of touring in Morocco, and we also went to Europe a couple of times. Helen and I took off and went up to Madrid. We had our good friends. They had kids our age, so they were happy to take care of Spike and Lynn. And then we, what was the next thing that happened then? Well, then I came back to Patuxent River, Maryland. And Patuxent River, Maryland is the Naval Air Test Center. And I went to the Ordnance Division. I stayed in this ordnance pathway all throughout the Navy. And that's where they would try out and develop and improve different ways of killing people, you know. Better guns and bombs and stuff like that. And so they're fairly efficient at it now, I guess. But anyway, that was the goal of that. And then the big thing there, though, was the flight test. And that's where they were testing out these different fighters. I got to personally know our neighbor was a guy by the name of Pete Conrad. And he was but anyway, he was one of the first guys selected as an astronaut. And I think he was the third guy to go up and walk on the moon. Pete Conrad.
The way we tell the story is, because we're space nuts, is that Pete honestly was slated to be the first man on the moon.
Yeah, Pete.
And through a series, but he was #1 rated of the Apollo people, I think.
He was just a lovely person,
Yeah.
and his wife, she was a Texan gal. She was about a head taller than him, and they had about 3 or 4 little boys. You know, they was our next door neighbor, and everybody just loved Pete.